the lovely, introduction. Again, my name is Siobhan Wilkes, she, her. I'm the Tau Beta Sigma National Vice President for Special Projects for the 2019-2021 biennium. Here's my information here, and I am glad to be able to be virtually streaming through your internet ways, I was going to say airways, but it's not the airways, to the Western District to share with you a little bit of my, expertise in event planning and coordinating people. I do have a degree in hospitality administration, which is essentially hospitality management. So, and I have experience working in hotel sales departments, group rooms, coordinating, and then currently I'm a hotel revenue manager for Hilton Worldwide. So I know a little bit about, planning events and, even on the chapter level. When I was an undergrad, I was able to lead my chapter as VPM and president through all sorts of cool things. Today, my presentation is called Driving with Confidence, leading your chapter boldly and daringly to do things differently in a virtual way. That kind of comes from one of my favorite quotes and something that is literally on a Post-it note in my bathroom, and it says, "Be bold, do things differently." And that's something that drives me in my personal pursuits, in my professional pursuits, and especially in what I do within the sorority, daring to be bold and doing things differently than they usually have been done, but also differently in a way to continue to further the organization and to challenge myself and the people around me to do great things. And so just as a heads up, my love language, number one love language is words of affirmation. So I can see you guys a little bit on my screen. So I say things like, yeah, okay, a lot. So just give me a thumbs up or a nod your head or something so I know that you're still there with me. Cool? Yeah. Okay. So some of the key concepts that we're going to be talking about today in this session is the idea of reflecting, reimagining, and being bold and doing things differently in the way that you plan events for your chapter and for your target audience or your bands. During this presentation, I will refer to either members, chapter, or audience, kind of use those three different things kind of interchangeable in a way as you're planning things for your chapter. Your audience could be your chapter members or your bands and the members of your band. So take it. And so, again, I am a hotel revenue manager, so one of the biggest things that I do is I dive deep into spreadsheets. I spend a lot of time looking at historical data, and so for me, when it comes to looking at events and how to best plan them and reimagine it and make them great, is reflecting on the past. And so taking and reflect on historical events and services that your chapter may do, and ponder on if they are still serving their intended purpose or your chapter or your target audience. We don't learn from experience, we learn from reflecting on experience. So you'll need to see what you've done in the past. If anything, making a list of what it is could be a great way to start and just see what have we done, have we seen good participation in those type of events for our bands, for our members of the band, or do we need to change it in a way? And so put on your data analyst hat, and this is also a project that can be done as a full chapter. I probably say this a million times a year, but what we do in Tau Beta Sigma is a team project, not an individual assignment. And so whatever you're doing, either you're taking and looking at your historical events for your chapter, you're planning your membership, recruitment for the year, or you're getting ready to set up for something else, do it as a team and work with other people in your chapter to be able to make it successful. As they say, teamwork makes the dream work. Insert rainbow over the skies. Okay, so you gotta put on your data analyst hat. I know we're going into the end of summer, you're about to start school, so we're trying to figure out how we're gonna do this thing. So you need to take and review some of the historical events and activity that you have had for your bands, for your chapter as well, like I said earlier. Answer some questions for yourself. Have you seen decreased participation in a certain program? Are your fundraisers ineffective? Are certain fundraisers more effective than others? Have you seen an interest for like virtual things versus in-person things? You know, kind of mull it around, try to figure out, kind of run the numbers and see which one of those things and which one of your activities have more value for your members versus not. You want to identify some successful ones, some not successes, sure. And then make decisions on, unsuccessful events, like this slide here says, because it's weird here in the words today. And so if you have said yes to any of the events that you're thinking of that may not be as effective for your bands or for your members, then you need to write those down. Like, let's talk about it. And we'll get that in a second. And then also looking at any extremely successful events, and you may have an opportunity, especially going into this next fall, to even amplify them and take them to the next level. Again, in that whole spirit of being bold and doing things differently. And so I'm going to give you guys 2 minutes to make a quick list. So everybody get a piece of paper or open up a Google Doc on your computer and just start making a quick list of activities, events, programs, or chapter activities that your chapter usually completes that that you usually do. And I challenge you to actually look at things that are specific to your office. So if you are the director of service, then do that. If you're the VP of membership, kind of stay in that lane. If you're doing Focus on 5 and working on national programs, work on that, and kind of just make a list of some of your quick historical events that your chapter has done. Making a list, checking it twice, gonna find out who's not organized. Y'all still working on that list? Okay, continue. When you're done, if you want to go ahead and look up, that'll be cool. So I know that you're good to go. All right, does everybody have a pretty good list started? Is it a dauntingly long list? Like, these are all the things that need to get done. Well, I love a good starting of a list. I actually just recently switched to the bullet journal method of planning and calendaring because list making is the only way things are getting done in my life at this point. And so the first step of, you're doing your data analysis and finding ways to do your events bigger and bolder and differently this year is definitely just making a list. I was watching Ant-Man yesterday and he said, my grandma used to say that if there's a lot of things you have to do, you make a list. Yeah, Anybody else? No, just me? Okay. So you have your list and with your historical events, fundraisers, programs that you usually do. We know this fall is going to be a little bit different for your chapter. So there are some things that you may want to keep, cancel, and even reimagine. As you're taking it and looking at your activities, some of these decisions to keep, cancel, or get rid of them. Oh, sorry, I wasn't sharing my screen. Some of those things that you may have to cancel or reimagine, or you could even keep, are things that may come on that list right there. But as we kind of go through, we can see that there's things that you can keep. So if you have on your list that there's things you can keep, as we talk about some of these concepts here, just put a little star next to it. Something that you can keep as an activity for your bands this year could be something that still have value for them, for your members. Something that would have value could include study halls, because people are still in school, right? What other things do you all think are things that are still valuable to our members, even if you have a virtual fall or so on and so forth? Go ahead and unmute yourself, drop it in the chat. Okay, and then other things that Hamburger B could be things that could be rescheduled to a later time and date. So if you usually have a band banquet, then maybe you could just go ahead and schedule it to the spring. You can definitely reschedule it to a time that you can have it safely in person versus having it in December like you usually do. And so keeps are definitely ones that need to stay. And then unfortunately, there are some items that you may have to cancel. Veggie Dog A, things that have lost their relevance or need by your target audience, by your chapter, or by your bands. So for your chapter, things that may have lost relevance is we may not need to teach everybody how to tie their shoes anymore. Hopefully they got under control. Or you may not need to continue to, do a certain activity for your band every year, like provide a specific service because your school may have hired somebody to wash uniforms instead of TBS having to wash them. So taking a look at some of these activities, if there's something that's in there on your list that could be canceled, may not be serving your bands as the way they could or serving your chapter, go ahead and put an X next to it. And then even with Veggie Dog B, things that are not physically possible for your chapter members of your band's target audience to attend. And so those could be things where if your school is in distance education this fall, maybe not having an in-person social activity. Sorry, you can't have your band banquet in person this year. Sorry, so go ahead and cancel that. And it could be something that could be rescheduled to next year, or even if it's, again, one of those activities that may not be as relevant and well attended, looking on that historical information that you have, it may have to be put into that category of cancel. Yeah, y'all still tracking with me? Cool. Does anybody have any questions so far? Not yet? Okay. So, and then that takes us to the ideas of reimagining. Reimagining your events is something that we all will become professionals at by the end of this year. This is when we have the opportunity to be bold and do things differently. And when you think about how different services or events can be reimagined, it really allows each of us to put on our creator and innovator hats and curate experiences for your members that are exciting, safe, and valuable to each member. And when you try to think of like where the limit is for reimagining what you can do, the limit does not exist. So chew on that. Should have put a meme in there, but that's not my style. But yeah, And so with those three ideas, I actually want to I want you guys to interact with me a little bit. And I want to ask you, what are some things on your list that you want to keep as an activity for your bands or your chapter? Please unmute yourself or drop it in the chat, or I will call you directly from your name listed.
Usually what my chapter does for our marching band every year is so we'll have 2 weeks of band camp, and then that weekend in between the 2 weeks we'll have like a Marching Aztecs game night so that we can get everyone together and the freshmen can get to know everyone. But this year, since we're really not sure how marching band is going to work, I was thinking about just moving the game night online, and we could have different like Zoom rooms with different games to kind of just keep that accessible to the band.
I love that. And I feel like over the past couple of months, I've experienced so many different game night versions via Zoom. Like we played jackpot games, or one day my friends and I played bingo. Like, how fun is that? And I even had a friend who made a full like deck of games. Like, it was really intense and fun. And so I think that's a really great idea. And even if you all are in person, but you can't have everybody together, that's a really cool thing that you've reimagined and put in that pile to be able to still provide that traditional service for your bands. Anybody else?
I know that our chapter every year does what we call Captain Band, which is kind of a cross between like a talent show and like a pageant. And we usually do it as a fundraiser. And I know that that's something that's usually very well attended. We all love it. It's super awesome because everybody comes together. We get people from marching band and TBS and people who aren't involved in marching band who come. And so we want to keep doing that this year, but instead of having it live, we're trying to figure out ways to have people pre-record their entries and send them in so that we can still, we're not going to do it as a fundraiser, but so that we can still keep that event going because it's something that we really like to do.
Yeah, I love that. Reimagining the way that you do it. And it's something, again, keeping it's still valuable to your members, even if it's just entertaining. I love that idea. I actually did watch recently it was a live stream fundraiser talent show thing, and it actually turned out really well. I think they just like put it in Zoom and people were able to like become the host and, you know, present their talent thing or their song or dance or whatever. And it was live streamed through the main Zoom to the page. So definitely a great way to reimagine and do your activities. Are there any activities that y'all have seen on your list that are a big, I'm sorry, we may have to cancel this one?
I can speak on one of these. So every year, Omega, along with our marching band, puts on what we call U of A Band Day. So it's like a big high school competition where the Pride performs, but we all had to cancel it this year just because it wouldn't work out. It's very sad, but I don't think it's a forever cancellation.
Yeah. It's a pause. Maybe the better word for this should be keep, pause, and reimagine. Because like some things need to be canceled, but that's definitely a huge pause. Like, we need to keep doing this, but we're going to do it next year. Fingers crossed. And so, and you can even find a way to even reimagine that as well. Maybe switching it to be reaching out to those bands and saying, we miss you, we appreciate you, just so that they know that, you know, U of A still loves the bands that do come to that festival, and even it's a kind of a way of, you know, reaching out and making relationships. I love the fact of like reaching out to people, continuing to, you know, build relationships and bonds with other bands and directors, and even, you know, possible future members of your bands. So could be reimagined. But yeah. And so very cool. Thank you all for sharing. So I'm going to go ahead and slide over to my next bit here. So as I'm going to kind of transition into giving you all some tools and best practice, and from at least my perspective on how to host any event, but specifically looking at a virtual event very well. So we're going to get down to the basics. And again, if you have any questions, please feel free to unmute yourself, drop a question into the chat, and I will be glad to answer them along the way. And so when thinking of some general, just normal guidance for creating any event for your audience, your band, your chapter, you want to keep it simple, sister. The whole KISS. So with that, I am a firm believer in following a consistent and simple model coupled with creating an exciting experience to make a great event happen. If you think about it, your district convention and national convention have the same bones of how they're, how the meetings go and the different workshops that you may see there and the offerings that happen. But with those offerings, there are some opportunities for flair added in. So when you go to a district convention, you don't get the same person to be your music speaker every year. The music that you play for reading band is different every year. So really taking and realizing that you have an opportunity to keep things simple, but still offer a little bit of jazz, a little flair, a little glitter to make it exciting. And especially that kind of taps into that reimagination and the creativity that we have an opportunity to really shine through in the events that you plan. And then I also love the idea of quality over quantity. And I love that model that, especially if you look at your list that you made, and if there are 50 different things on there, you have an opportunity to scale back on some of that. And especially even with the idea of quality over quantity, I like to think of it also as the idea of making things exclusive. So we have exclusive band game night only on that first Saturday of band camp. It's not every Saturday. And so people are really excited, they're jazzed up about it. And so you want to make sure that you're providing quality and good experiences for your members and maybe not a bunch of extra things that are not well put together and so on and so forth. And you definitely have the opportunity to reduce the number of offerings to maximize your impact. And if you focus on the information provided to encourage members to participate in activities that they need to attend, and then streamline the number of sessions and the number of activities that you offer. And so from there, I want to lead you into one of my favorite quotes, my second favorite quote after Be Bold. It's from a book called Service Included, and this quote, "Service is not about servitude, but about anticipating desires or needs." I could actually write a whole workshop about this one quote, especially when you talk about providing for your bands and anticipating the desires and the needs of your band members, needs of your director of bands as you go and do all the things that you have to do for them. And so during this time of the year, pretty much each chapter and member may have a specific set of needs to get them through the rest of the year. I think something that, I know even me, I'm not in college, but even me as a person, human on this earth in the middle of the pandemic, I need personally just a little bit more TLC, a little bit more face-to-face, virtual face-to-face with friends. And so that could be even a project that you offer for your members. And so anticipating desires, you really want to think of some of the specific needs of your chapter, your bands, and members' target audience. So when looking at your chapter, I wrote down a couple of ideas here. So for your chapter, you may have some opportunity for future planning for your chapter, engaging individual members in, creating 1, 3, 5-year plans for that specific office or for the chapter as a whole. Even with those plans, some projects and services, taking the beginning of this presentation and kind of going through your events and your activities and deciding on what things we need to keep, cancel, or reimagine a different way. And then social interaction, we all need an opportunity to fellowship and hang out and just chill together. And then I also like the idea of time. Again, kind of reflects back to that concept of quality over quantity. For your chapter, we all have things going on the personal side. You got school and, trying to figure everything out. Sometimes people just need time just to do them. So giving people an opportunity to rest and time to do that, I think it's a great idea. So what other type of specific needs do you feel that your chapter would need over the next semester? Also, please feel free to use the chat box.
I know up at NAU, we have a brother chapter on campus too, and we have a lot of joint events that we host, and I think that's really important to us to interact with the brothers on our campus, and so I think that's definitely something that we're going to have to keep in mind being virtual, at least for the first month.
Yeah, and I think, some of those examples I gave, like future planning, projects and service, and social interaction, it could be just making sure that you're intentionally, like you said, looping them in on things, doing planning for both organizations for the future. Great idea.
I think that's something that's going to be super essential for everyone is helping our members manage burnout, because Zoom fatigue is very real, especially if your classes are live online, and it can just get very tiring. So helping our members by not adding to that as much as we can, but also helping them manage it in the best way possible, I think is going to be super critical as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like that even gives you an opportunity as a chapter to make sure that you're really driving into Robert's Rules of Order, and when you're having your chapter meetings online, making sure that they are running smoothly and efficiently so that people aren't on Zoom for hours on hours. And even I think the idea of sending out the officers send out their packets, their information before the meeting so everybody can review it. So you can just get down to business, talk about it, and keep going on with your day, so that it doesn't go super long. And I do like that, JJ, helping them to manage burnout. It's a thing. It's real. So very cool. Anybody else? Nope. All right. So definitely with your chapter, as some of the things y'all already were saying, anticipating the desires and the needs of your audience, it'll help your chapter members and your bands to really continue to, start the year off strong. I feel like it always gets a little rocky at the middle of the year, but we'll be able to help and be consistent even through this time of social distancing and, reduced group gatherings and everything. We'll be able to help your chapter, your band still continue to finish the semester and the year off really well too. And then, so still under the idea of going under anticipating desires and needs, curating relevant experiences. We talked about some of the needs that your chapter may have, and I think from there you can go and create experiences for your chapter, the individual members, the band, even things that would be very relevant and valuable to them. So providing information to your audience that they need to hear, and things that they would need to hear could be, updates on what band's going to look like, or need to know how they can, check out an instrument and this, that, and the other, Also things for a need could also be, like JJ said, how to manage your burnout, how to do self-care in the time of COVID and all the things. It also could be tapping into experiences that your audience will want to learn about. I love the idea of providing that social interaction, and also you can even survey your band and your chapter. What are some things that y'all would like to learn more about? And we have an opportunity to, create leadership workshops for your chapter, or do some more team building, even though it's in a virtual way, to really help them to continue to develop themselves in an entertaining way, but also something that really interests them. And then I'm a huge fan of this next one, providing opportunities for your audience members to fellowship. One thing that I'm excited about the signature retreat that y'all have, what JJ said, that after this is a social activity, which I think is a great thing to do. I think it helps with breaking up that Zoom fatigue, because you may still be behind your camera, but you are in a more relaxed situation. So with Tau Beta Sigma in general, we're an organization that is built on relationships, networking, music, leadership, and all of that. And I am a firm believer that the people that you're serving with in your bands now are going to be your friends for the rest of your life. And I always tell people, it gives me goosebumps when I say it, but every job that I've received is because of somebody in Tau Beta Sigma or in band. And so definitely giving each other an opportunity to just fellowship, let your hair down, relax, get to know each other as well. If not in a structured networking way, but more of, like you were saying, game nights or just hangout sessions is a great way to bring value to your events and also to give people that need for social interaction that a lot of us are missing out on. Yeah. And then last thing is taking and giving a tangible item or takeaway. I, again, huge fan of the takeaway and the item there. I think that also adds to the point of like exclusive offers. And if you joined, if you're here on Signature now, you get the information first, you're getting the resources first, versus people have to watch it later in a couple weeks, they, miss out on this information. They're not as prepared as you guys are. So making sure that you provide some type of takeaway. Even if it is a little graphic that you made in Canva that you drop the link in the chat, and it's like, hey, if you want to create a self-care wheel of your own, here's a document here. Or hey, if you're interested in my virtual budget template, here it's there to help you budget for your chapter or for yourself. There's always great value in giving somebody something, giving somebody a favor per se when they come to an event. And I actually do have a resource / takeaway item for you guys, but I'll have to give it to you at the end so I can put it in the chat. And so yeah, create events, curate events that are special and valuable to your members. Do y'all have any questions or anything so far? All still rocking and rolling with me? Good, okay. All right. And then my last quote, I'm huge into the quotes here. This was actually something somebody told me when I was chapter president and we were planning a district workshop for our district. And they said to me, plan your event so people just have to show up and enjoy. And I was talking to a friend earlier today and I was like, that's going to be my wedding. Like, nobody's doing any work except for the people who are paid here to work, but everybody else in my bridal party is just going to show up and enjoy the day. And I think that's a great thing to do and just a great tidbit to have in virtual or even in-person events that you do for your chapter or for your bands. Because you never go to a banquet where you as not an audience member, as a guest is having to like set the table and like, put your own forks out and pour your own drink, usually. Usually there's, the table's already set, your glass already has water with the ice melted and iced tea with the ice melted. And so make sure that you set things up so that people just have to show up and enjoy. And this concept kind of puts together all the other ones, keeping it simple. If members have to go through 100 hoops to connect to a Zoom, you have to be authenticated, thumbprints, retina scan, they're not going to show up. And so make it easy, but like authenticate it easy, and then make it accessible for them to join. Make it accessible is the second one. Use the right platform. And, of course, right now we're using Zoom. There's a couple of other different things that you could use as a virtual. I think I even saw, was it the Western District Alumni Association created or had a Discord channel to play games the other day. And so that's a specific channel that was used to play games together. So that is awesome. And if you want to do games like that, use a channel that is specific to what you're using. Even live streaming it if you want to. And I feel like we've been doing this thing for a couple months now, so we're almost professionals at using these platforms. Also a huge fan of saving and sharing your experience. Like JJ said, this is recorded, so this will be for the other members of your district to be able to enjoy and to be able to learn something too. Of course, you all have the third part, the exclusive content, because you're here in person. So, and then last thing, creating resources that your members can access during the session or as part of it as exclusive content. so they can try to be the first to join. And so I think that's some of the basic items of, planning something, so people just have to show up. And then sometimes I think on the back end of planning events and virtual experiences for your band or for your chapter, there's a lot of work that has to be done. But once you have an outline of how you can do it, it's easy just to, copy and paste that outline. Here's how we're doing the next event. And then another thing is assembling your squad. Again, this is a team project. You are not in this alone. It's not your job to save your chapter from all the things that could happen or save your bands. It is a job, a project that you all in your chapter members have to take on to be able to make successful things happen. And I'm a huge believer in communication. Communicating with the other executive members of your chapter, the executive council, or your district council members, the national leadership team. Communicate through the good and the bad. Communicate with your brother organization if you have a KKSI or other Greek organization that you may be collaborating on an event with, just so you're on the same page. And share the responsibility and the load in planning an event too. And I'm going to say that again, share the responsibility and the load of planning an event. If you are, again, it's a team project. I wish I could do a thing here, or I can do my pointer. Team projects. It's a nice pointer. Oh, yes. Okay, so to tie it all up with a bow, you're gonna have to take and look at your list that you made, or even make an even more detailed list. Look at some of the items that you would like to keep, things that still have value or that can be moved to a later date for your chapter or members. You have to cancel some things that are not as relevant, not as valuable, or not able to actually do, physically impossible to do this year. And then reimagine, be creative, be bold, and move with fortitude through all that you do for the rest of this year. And yeah, be bold, do things differently. Any questions that I can answer at this time? I'm going to stop sharing.
If there are no questions, can we all give Siobhan a huge round of applause for that awesome presentation? We really appreciate you being here, Siobhan, and sharing your time and expertise with us in the West, even though it's a 2-hour difference for you. So thank you very much.
My pleasure.
All of her information was on those slides, so if you do have any questions, I'm sure that she would not mind if you reached out to her. But again, from the Western District and the District Council, thank you so much, Siobhan. We really appreciate you sharing your expertise with us.
My pleasure. I do have my exclusive content for you guys. So if you give me 1 second so I can get this link. And it's actually just a event planning outline. It's just very basic on, the purpose of your event, your activity, who's hosting it, your speaker, if you have one, any room needs like Zoom, do you need breakout rooms? Do you need to get a special platform? Are you live streaming it? And then even a fellowship activity or offering, especially, if you can do both. And then also I have your squad on the list, who you want to work with or who can you work with and collaborate on this specific activity. Only people, I'm going to change my sharing properties. Anyone with the link, copy link. All right, so you should be able to access that. And then JJ, if you want, I can send that over to y'all so y'all can add it to the video as well.
That would be awesome.
Yeah. And so, yeah, I did also put my contact in the chat, my name, phone number, and that sglam25 is how you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest too, I think. I don't know. I post a lot of plant stuff on Pinterest.